I was making around $140,000 a month working in my pajamas, and I honestly thought that I made it, that I was on the right path. But after working on this store for a bit and beginning to scale and learning these 3 lessons along the way, I realised that I was wrong and that I was just taking myself deeper into this hole. And before I dug so deep that I wouldn't be able to climb out of it, so I quit. For several years after quitting my 9-to-5 job, I continued to rinse and repeat these dropshipping stores, and most of the time not even leaving the house. And then I would just sleep, and then I did the same routine the next day, work, sleep, and then the next day, work, sleep, and then the next day, work, sleep. And I knew these stores would last a constant 3 to 5 months, as I wasn't giving the customer a good experience. Shipping was taking too long, stuff was coming broken, and I really wasn't happy or passionate about the stuff I was selling. And I seriously thought that this was it. For the next 16,060 days that I'd be doing this until I retired or died. But at least on the bright side, there were always 2 moments of the day that I look forward to. One was when I got up from my desk to close down the email tab of all the angry customers, and the other was when I would check my bank balance to see Shopify had just deposited a shit ton of money. But one day after watching way too many motivational YouTube videos, I realised that I had 2 paths. Before me, one path was bright, the dirt was smooth, paved and safe, with lots of people walking on it. The other path was darker, the ground was rough, it was dangerous, and it had rocks, and it was a lot lonelier. Now I know some of you guys watching right now are super struggling with your dropshipping stores, and the highlight of your day is when you get that cha-ching noise. And I want to let you know that it doesn't have to be that way. You shouldn't be desperately trying to find these scammy winning products. Yes, once these products hit, you get to make an ton of money, but these stores and products, they aren't sustainable. So I'm making this video on sharing my experience on what finally convinced me to switch to a different path with ecom. And I really want you guys to pay attention here, because I want this video to be more than just words that you see on your screen and more than just some sounds that come from your speakers. I remember time and time again when I would approach 6K days and knowing that my customers weren't actually getting that great of a product or an experience. It made me feel empty, lost inside. And I wasn't the only one either. There were honestly a bunch of people in my circle doing this, and still are, and they're making great money every day, but to me, I wasn't happy. It was an endless toxic cycle of people bragging about how much revenue they had just done, and none of us cared about the customer experience. It was just a numbers game. And I absolutely hated it, but it was just a thing that we all did. And since I wanted to belong and make a ton of money, I joined in this cycle repeatedly, which probably perpetuated the cycle. And looking back, it never really stung me until one day I remember looking back at this very vividly. I was so frustrated working because I was fulfilling my products and it just kept bugging out, error after error, refresh after refresh. And then my phone started ringing and I checked it and I saw that it was my girlfriend calling. And my first thought wasn't, oh, this is nice, this is my girlfriend calling. Instead, my thoughts were, what does she want now? I picked up the phone and I didn't even ask what she wanted. I just said, I'm too busy, and then I hung up. And it wasn't until months later that I could see what a total asshole I was to her when I was running all of these stores. I chose to get angry over my orders and I took it out on her. And that's when I learned my first lesson, that if you don't build your dreams and you aren't happy with what you're doing, you will eventually stall out. And I know this might sound super extreme, like most people watching this will just say, oh yeah, just grind it out, bro. Keep hustling or whatever, but I was for years, from doing something that was so deeply unsatisfying every single day that it became painful. And yet even after realizing all this, it still wasn't enough to convince me to take my first step on that darker path. I worked in these stores for years while traveling all over the world, and I'm not gonna lie, I was super excited to do this at first, especially when we started making a lot of money, because at first it made me think that I'd actually made it. But after a few years, that excited feeling of all these sales coming in and running the ads, it just disappeared. And instead I started dreading opening up that laptop. I never felt that I was giving any value to the customers of what I was selling, until one day something happened, and that taught me my second lesson. Every day without fail when I went to the gym, I would see the exact same person training, and we could call him Bob, and I was friendly with him. He was like one of those CrossFit guys that would do crazy pull-ups with ridiculous form, but he would always smile, he always had a joke to crack, and he never complained. I wasn't exactly friends with him, but we would say hi to each other upon passing, and we just had small talk. And one day after chatting, I found out that he had this store on Etsy, and he wasn't exactly killing it, but he was making just enough from his store to support his family and to have 2 yearly trips where he would take them on holiday. And I told him what I was doing with my ecom stores, and he was shocked with the monthly revenue. And of course, I told him that I wasn't happy, that I was miserable. And that's when the second lesson clicked, that we should make something we're proud of no matter how small the income is at first. Sell something you love and you believe in. Build something that when you die, it lives on. This was when I felt more more motivation than ever before to really start planning and strategizing on how I can change my path and start walking on that darker one. But it wasn't until my third lesson that I took my first step on the other path, because this is when I really thought about my entire life. One day after another day of just sitting at my desk, I was just thinking to myself that there has to be more than this. And that's when I realized my third lesson. And this was what was missing from my stores, which was a purpose. If you don't have a purpose in life, then you will be part of someone else's. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with not having a purpose in life, as long as you're aware of it and you've made that decision on your own. But for me personally, I wasn't fine with it. I wanted to contribute and do more than I was at the time. I wanted to rediscover that mindset I had when I was a kid and build a proper brand instead of these crappy fly-by-night stores. I realized that the best way to do that was to use my background knowledge from what I've learned over the past years selling these dumb products to just sell something good. It was literally that simple. It took me years to learn these lessons and ultimately inspired me to take the first couple of steps down the darker path. And obviously I was very lucky to be in that position that allowed me to do this. It took me years to finally make that plunge, because at first I just felt so much pressure internally because I was literally about to hit that kill switch on all my income with all these stores, but I knew long term it would be worth it. But at the same time, I felt that I was being really ungrateful, like walking away from this dream income that was really comfortable, that so many people would just love to have. But what I realized, that sticking to something that is just so deeply unsatisfying, it just isn't worth it. I didn't want to be paid money to sell crap with no other purpose than just to make money. We all have purposes in our life, and sometimes we just lose sight of that. And sometimes it's different from what you're currently doing. And you want to be doing something else, but you're not trying because it's scary to go down the dangerous and more darker path. We let fear stop us from going after our dreams. We get worried about being uncomfortable and failing. So now I'm on this dark path and I'm trying to pursue my purpose, my reason, why I'm here. And that's really why I created this YouTube channel, to be able to help and inspire people about dropshipping and ecom in general, but to do it in the right way, which in the long term will make you way more money than these crappy fly-by-night stores. And yes, this will be scary at first to, of course, just shut down a consistent income and everything else that comes with that. But despite all these fears, there's one thing that you should be even more scared of, and that is to not try. And that fear of regret, scared of not taking this opportunity that's before us and not trying to make something out of it. But I'm here now and I'm walking on this path, and for those of you that are still watching, I want to let you guys know that it's okay to be scared. You can't grow until you're uncomfortable, until you're scared. And when you join me on this path, I want to let you know that you're going to constantly feel like you can't do it. Like, there's going to be people that tell you that you're going to fail and that dropshipping is just a scam, and that's completely okay. Because what's worse than failing is not trying when you really want to. Take the time now on how you can start planning and strategizing on that next step. Do not lose sight of your why and your reason. And if you want to know my full dropshipping story on how I grew to over $1 million in sales, watch this video here where I take you on that journey, hold your hand, and show you how you can start this today.